So let's get a view from Shaqued Morag, who's executive director of the activist group Peace Now, which has been campaigning for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for more than 40 years. First of all, what does she make of what we heard there from the police, that Israeli Arabs are responsible for most of the violence?
I can tell you this didn't happen in a vacuum. This is the explosion of tension that was built long time and was exploded, as I see it, by our government that uses cynically a very fragile and sensitive timing, such as Ramadan, to incite violence, as I see it, in order to prevent political changes in Israel. The city of Lod is a poor and marginalized city, and I'm sure that the Arab population there feels under oppression and was very also hurt by the sights of the police violence in Al-Aqsa Mosque. And this exploded. It shouldn't happen. As a Jewish citizen of Israel, I am very saddened to see the sights of burned synagogues. But I cannot distinguish that from the whole picture in which the government sends police to Al-Aqsa and a very extremist right-wing parliament member goes to Sheikh Jarrah in Jerusalem. And what we see in Lod is part of the outcome.
But as you say, it's pretty intolerable to have groups of Israeli Arab men going round setting fire to synagogues, also to people's homes, to people's cars.
Of course, it's intolerable. Unfortunately, we saw it happening in both sides. I know Arab citizens of Jaffa whose cars were burned down too, in the north as well of Israel, in the Galilee. I mean, violence between extremists is something that shouldn't lead our lives here.
Yes, and on that, the Jewish people behind some of the violence, I mean, the police talked about them defending themselves. To what extent are they organized and are they part of far-right groups?
We saw announcements of buses coming from the settlements in the West Bank with armed people to Lod, in order, in their languages, to help the police govern the streets or to defend the people of Lod. But I, as a citizen, doesn't want civilian armed people so-called defending each other and actually creating civil war. I want to see police controlling the situation. And also, we cannot distinguish that from what's happening in the other side of the Green Line, where you can see in every encounter the Israeli forces backing the Jewish settlers and turning a blind eye to violence and to them breaking the law. And now it's leaking into the Green Line. That's what we're witnessing here. And it's the same leadership that encourages these phenomena in both sides of the Green Line.
What is different now in 2021 that this has provoked this communal violence?
3 years ago, the nation-state law was legislated and made it formal that the Arab citizens of Israel aren't allowed to express their national identity. And I think that in a way, it encouraged them to identify with the oppressed Palestinians in the West Bank and to join, for example, the demonstrations in Sheikh Jarrah. There is about to be a new government supported by the Arab parties, and we see Netaniהו doing whatever in his power and encouraging the extremists to delegitimize again the Arab vote. And of course, people are violent.
Is it possible that the violence that we've seen within Israel between the two different communities, is it possible that that's more dangerous for Israel than the conflict with Hamas?
As an Israeli, I can tell you we've experienced the missiles from Gaza many times. And yes, the violence in the streets inside Israel gets under our skin in a different way. It's very frightening. On the other hand, I can tell you also that we've witnessed many demonstrations yesterday and today of Jewish and Arab citizens of Israel standing together in the street, modeling a different reality of coexistence and mutual support and mutual trust. And while the groups that are more extreme and marginalized keep clashing with each other and setting fire in the streets, I do believe that the majority is much more moderate and can lead a different future.
Shaqued Morag of the group Peace Now, speaking to me from Israel. Again, more on our website, bbc.com/news.